will be like a zoom in and zoom out, so it's going to get their face.
I'm shady.
They're doctors and lawyers and policemen and teachers. And it's like we planted these seeds that are just bearing fruit everywhere. So to me, it is incredibly energizing and exciting to see our graduates coming back to coach and to teach and to take us to places we've never been. They're going to do so much better with the school than I've done as they take it over, and I'm excited about that.
It's very true, because there's nothing like someone who's already gone through the system. They know how it was when they were here, and it's a lot easier for them to communicate to someone who's going through that, I think, as opposed to someone who just didn't go through there. So it's very easy for them to be like, hey, been there, done that.
That's right.
It is also a soccer podcast.
Absolutely.
So now that we answered how this came up, Santa Fe South is not a program to be reckoned with.
That's right.
And this year seems like a special year. I mean, every year seems like a special year, but there's a twinkle with this one. And from what I've been hearing, this team's a little different.
Yep.
There's a little different this year. But tell me about this year's team, and then we'll go back into that number one team that you had 20 years from now.
I've got a lot of experience. I coached for 18 and a half years. I played club soccer in college. I wasn't very good, but I played. My daughter played, and it's the beautiful game. It's a game that I have loved for decades, and I have never seen a more technical team, top to bottom, than what we have now. Their speed is matched with their skill. Their sense of the game, their work off the ball is as impressive as their work on the ball. And they're clicking now better than we've ever seen them. They will be peaking in the postseason, and I cannot tell you how excited I am. I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't see a lot of serious competition out there, and I almost wish some of the great teams that we played in the past were here this year so we could beat them. Because I believe this is probably the finest team that Santa Fe South has ever produced.
Yeah. When I asked that question to Furley, he gave me some great teams and some great names.
Yeah.
But it was hard to bring up this team considering that there's still work to be done.
Yeah.
So I think this is a special team as well, and I can't wait to see what they accomplish.
They're going to have to make their name, right? They have to. One of the greatest teams I ever had didn't make it out of the playoffs.
Really?
And in fact, it was the year I stopped coaching and turned over the team to Furley. Because in my mind, I had the most talented team I'd ever seen. And I'd done everything I could as a coach and couldn't get them there. So I knew it was time for me to hand it over to someone else. And the very next year, Wes won the first state championship. So I probably should have quit earlier.
Wow,
so he did a great job.
So you gave it up in 08?
That's correct.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. And then I remember 09, I was there watching from the stands in Mustang.
Me too.
When they had won. And I think there was just a plethora of people from the south side there. I don't remember a championship being played. Well, there was a few, but being won is different.
Yeah.
And then from there, I mean, that just started it from there on out. Just complete dominance. I've said this before on the podcast, but my experience in high school when we made playoffs was getting beat by Santa Fe South, going up by 2-1, and then coming back 3-2 every year.
I remember those games.
It would happen against Santiago and Gallegos, and then it happened against Ramiro Becerra and Gabriel and everybody else. So those are big games. And coming from a small school like Dove Science Academy to have such a big clash with another charter school, and being two small charter schools competing against everyone else when they would, for whatever reason, whether it was because we were a city school, a Brown school, a Brown team, it was good to always get those W's against those teams.
Absolutely.
Nani, do you have any questions?
Okay. What do you think makes Santa Fe South athletes different than other athletes at other schools?
Well, I think it's one of those things like we see in any sport. Once you've begun a tradition of winning, students enter expecting to work harder and expecting to win. That mindset is what distinguishes us from other schools. So you might have a BA or a Jinx in football, they expect to win. Perry in wrestling, they expect to win. Tuttle, they expect to win in wrestling. These are schools that have a tradition of feeder programs and expectations. And when that happens, you can work harder in practice because you've got more people to elevate your skill. I'm noticing this year that our JV girls team, for example, is one of the best JV teams we've had, which tells me in the next 2 years, our varsity team, because of that pressure from below, we're going to get better. We're just several years ahead with the boys. So I think you've got homegrown talent. We've got some people that kind of transferred in late in middle school, and then a few really fortunate transfers from Dove this past year.
I've heard.
That we're really pleased to have those guys.
Nice.
They're exceptional.
I think the key word that he mentioned there was discipline.
Yeah.
Because even though soccer season does start December 1st, it starts way before that even comes in.
It never ends.
It never ends, does
never
it?
ends,
And you should be prepping like that 24/7. One of the things that gets played over and over again is fitness, running. And that's one of the things that I first heard about Brewster when I was in high school, hearing about Santa Fe South was all these players complaining about how
they would run a lot.
they would run
I'd
down
heard that
36th
too.
Street.
Yeah.
All the way down
He
36th
still
Street and
does
back,
that.
and then still practice. Is that what still happens?
Even at cross country practice, we run from 44th
From 44th?
and back. That's like 6 miles, I think.
Yeah, on a routine
lot.
basis. Yeah.
Discipline. Why discipline and fitness and running?
So when I was first hired to coach soccer at Capitol Hill, I had no experience coaching soccer and only club experience playing. And I got my team together, which was made up of all Hispanic players who really knew the game and were highly skilled. And I said, I cannot tell you how to play this game. In fact, technically, you're already more advanced, but there's two things that I know. One is how to build a team, teamwork, and how to condition a team. And I guarantee you, no matter what, by the end of the season, you'll be more fit than anybody we play, and that'll give us a lot of wins, and you'll be tighter as a team than anybody we play. Well, they bought into it, and we were able to create a really successful program at Capitol Hill back then that became competitive. Prior to that, they were well known for maybe not beating you on the field, but they would beat you in the parking lot afterwards. It was like a rough crew, man.
Yeah.
These guys were rough. And the same thing happened at Deer Creek. The girls there had won the state championship. The boys were like a joke. They joked about themselves. And I said, no, we're not going to be like that. And you win or lose, you're going to be more fit than ever.
Yes.
So it costs you more in the game to lose because of all the miles you put in. Now, along the way, I learned a lot about the game. But for me, the foundation of any sport I've ever coached is giving athletes the advantage their body can give them. So as high a level of fitness as possible so they can get out of the sport what they can take from it. I never wanted to be to blame for them not producing well second half because they ran out of gas. So we did run a lot. We did an awful lot of work in core strength. That was really key and still is key to my coaching philosophy.
Nice. Is this something that you go over with your AD? Is this only isolated to soccer, or is basketball everyone else running? Now, they are different sports, so there probably wouldn't be the need for them to run as much. But is there kind of like a code of conduct, a code of, something that you need to see here at Santa Fe South?
I think that is naturally adopted. Each coach kind of has their strengths. So you may have a coach that's highly technical as a wrestling coach, and he can get his athletes ready through, teaching moves. Some are strength sports. Some are highly skilled like basketball, and they've got to go over the skills. But for me, just my coaching style has always had the foundation of sort of 5 S's: speed, skill, strength, stamina, and scholarship. Those 5 things, you press those into your athletes. And whatever you coach, I was coaching volleyball, and that matches and cross country has really become my favorite sport now that I get to continue to coach it. And it's such an athlete-centered sport like soccer and wrestling that I love pouring into an athlete and then kind of turning them loose to see what they can produce. A sport like football doesn't appeal to me because it's a coaching sport.
Yeah, you run plays as opposed to being open to what's being played right in front of you.
I like sports that you do your coaching in practice and you basically just sort of encourage in a game. Because if you're trying to coach in a soccer game, you really probably already messed up. Yeah.
I agree. The one thing that you mentioned about cross country, I didn't know you were still the coach, so that's cool. Cross country is one of those sports that you get out what you put in. The 5 things that you mentioned are 5 things that are controllable.
Yep.
That you have, that you can manipulate. And I caught that. Cross country is another one. If you practice and put your hours in, you're going to get the fruits of your labor. Why cross country? Why running for you?
I think I gravitate towards sports that are mentally tough.
Okay.
And cross country is about pain management. So somebody like Nani, who she's an above average athlete, but she is way above average with pain tolerance. She's just very tough. So she can become an outstanding runner that's not even her main thing, really. I think she could probably do anything, but I love athletes that can take that and individualize that, because every year a whole handful of athletes that I never thought would become good runners have trained all summer long.
Yeah.
And they come back and I'm like, where in the world did you come from? And now they're in the top 7 on a great team. So I like any sport that an individual can really sort of control their destiny on. And cross country is a pain management sport. They're tough to get out there and do what we do.
A lot of dedication.
A lot of dedication.
Yeah. Waking up at 6 to get there at 7 to run 5 miles.
All summer long, right? All summer long,
for the
these
whole
guys
summer.
are getting up. Yeah.
But something about running is different. I don't know if you know, Nani, I've ran 2 marathons, and something about running is just different. And Brewster, you could probably speak to this. When you get those players that have been running all summer, running teaches you something, and they probably come a little bit more mature.
Yeah.
Going through that suffering builds a callus, in your mind more than anything else. But with running, after you hit like 4, 5, 6 miles, after you've broken through that first wall, and you kind of hit this like euphoria. You don't feel your body. You just hear your steps, and your mind is quiet. It's hard for me to explain that to people who haven't had that feeling.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just went on a tangent.
No, I think it's interesting that I rarely get to that point with my cross country runners, because we're training to race a 5K.
Small and quick.
And so we run 5 to 8 miles, maximum, and we're pounding. So we're doing tempo runs. The beauty of running that you're talking about really comes when you're training for half marathons and triathlons. You find that place that sort of transports you, and I would hope that they get a chance to do that. That's a more mature runner's experience most of the time. Yeah.
Did you know how many triathlons have you done?
Oh, I don't know, 17 or 18.
17 or 18 triathlons?
Yeah, a lot of those when I was younger. Yeah.
Did you know that do you know what a triathlon is?
Like, you do 3 sports, like you have to finish in a certain time, right?
Biking, swimming, and running. And I don't know if there's a time limit. I think it's more so of a race.
Oh, I don't know.
There's time limits on the long ones, like you have to finish or you DQ and they don't count you. But most of them you just try to finish. So.
When was your first triathlon?
Oh man, I don't know. I'd have to go back and think. It would have been the early 2000s probably. Did a mini sprint or 2 at OCCC. There's like 4 different lengths of them, and the biggest ones I ever did were half Ironman.
Half
triathlon.
Ironman.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. Why? What made you want to put your body through that? Your body was probably like, hey, what's going on here?
He still runs with us.
In the middle of those races, just like a marathon, you're thinking, well, why am I doing this? But the day after you're done, you think, I want to do it again. It's, I guess, maybe like childbirth or something. You don't remember the pain. But the first half Ironman I did is 2-mile swim, and then it's a 56-mile ride, and then a half marathon run, back to back to back. And I was 6.5 hours in or something, and I'm like, man, I will never do this again. This is insane. And yet there's that weird addiction you have to just trying to see what your body can do.
Yes.
So I want my athletes to be thinking about proving the possible. Like they think racing a 5K is hard, but they could run a rim to rim in the Grand Canyon. They could do an ultra marathon. They could do some really cool stuff. So just sort of habituating that challenge to the body is something I think is pretty cool.
There's no pain better than the pain of running those marathons and then getting up the next morning thinking that, I did this to myself. I did this to myself and I survived.
I could barely move, and I got the medal to prove it.
Nice. Yeah. I agree. Nani, do you have any questions?
Okay. How do you find the best coaches for Santa Fe South?
Used to be more difficult. Now the best coaches find Santa Fe South. And what I'm seeing now is that, especially in soccer, many of our coaches were our players, and that's the very best. They went off to college, or they understand the game now. They understand our culture, the discipline. They have deep respect for the players in the game and extremely high expectations. So we're not having as much trouble as some schools are, especially in soccer, because they want to come and coach here. In other sports, it is challenging because we pay almost nothing. And they spend so much time. I think one year I told my wife, I said, I figured out how much I made coaching. And she said, how much? I said, 72 cents an hour this season. So you don't do it because you want any money, but you do it because you love the athletes you're working with and the sport that they're a part of. So some people get that and some don't.
Shout out to your soccer coaches. The episode that we'll be releasing this Wednesday was with my cousin Francisco Flores and with Abel.
Yeah.
And then we had Furley on as well. So I think we've kind of we've covered all our bases here at Santa Fe South.
Yeah, love that.
Can you talk to me a little bit about those first teams here at Santa Fe South?
Yeah, our first team here at Santa Fe South were all freshmen because we were in ninth grade school, and I scheduled a full varsity schedule.
Oh, man.
So 12 games against anybody I could play that were good teams. I said, guys, my expectation is that we probably get thrashed this season, but we're going to play 12 varsity teams. You're all freshmen. You're going to play them. And they're like, okay. And we went 0-12.
Wow.
But we had Chiva, and we had some of the best players in the city coming in who believed in the team. But one of my best players was a girl. We had a co-ed team, Carmen Preciado. Okay. So the first Preciado I had was Carmen. And she, by her sophomore year, was a team captain. The boys respected her so much that they elected her team captain. And she got angry the next year when we started a girls' team because she wanted to stay playing with the boys. But once you have a girls' team, the girls can't play with the boys. The next year, I think we won 5 games, lost 7. The third year, we qualified for the state championship. And the fourth year, we were second at state. So in 4 years, we built a program because incredibly hard work on those kids, and we were 3A school, so we could be pretty competitive in that area. But tell you what, we didn't have a field, and so we practiced down where the Mexican League plays. Okay. And our pregame routine was taking 5-gallon buckets and picking up all the broken beer bottles from the weekend before. I understand that. Because you slide tackle through those things.
No, I've seen barbed wires get caught in people's knees. It actually happened with Ashton. Ashton out of Santa Fe South. They were playing against him. He slid, and he had a little wire just hanging out of his leg.
So you know exactly where. I mean, that's where we cut our teeth. Our home games down there the first couple of years. Then we moved our home field to South Lakes. And I recall vividly dealing with some racism down there and some crazy stuff that happened. And then by the third year, we kind of had our own field. And that was a big move for us, being able to play sort of on the south side. Actually, fourth year maybe.
There on Santa, where the home field is now?
Right.
Nice, which is very famous now.
Now it is. Now it's starting to look like a soccer field. Yeah, we've got some things that make it look nice.
It's a tough place for anybody to walk out with a W as well.
We love making people sad they drove all the way down to play us on that field.
Yeah, it's kind of. I bet you. I think Furley had said it's hard to get games scheduled now.
Yeah, it is. It's hard, and they know if they face us, they want it to be a meaningful time. They don't want to face us in the preseason, really. The big schools, the 6A schools, have no advantage to playing us, so they don't want to compete with them because, the Southside school is going to beat these big 6A programs. So it's hard to get games scheduled now.
It's a blessing and a curse.
It is. It's
a blessing and a curse. Nani, any questions?
No, I'm actually. This is like I'm listening to it right now. Yeah.
Okay, let's keep moving and grooving. And then you got to the point where you ended up giving up the team. Yeah. Not giving it up. You were passing the torch. To Furley. Yeah. And were you in his ear, or did you just completely just kind of let him take the reins?
It's an interesting question. Wes was one of my athletes at Capitol Hill.
You did mention that.
And really proud of him. I recruited him where he came out of baseball. He played baseball as a freshman, and this tall, lanky, scrawny little white guy who had lived overseas, so he knew the game. And he and David Troutman, the only other white guy, was a little forward. He was a winger. Wes was for me on a really good team. And he earned his way to college by hard work. Academically, he worked harder than anybody I knew. He filled out all the applications. There was nobody helping Wes get to college. He found the college. He got a scholarship to college. He went to 4 years and played up in McPherson, Kansas. And then as he came back, I think he was going to go work for ODOT or something like that. And I said, I want you to come back and be a PE teacher. I just want you to be a part of the program and to help me with soccer. And he's coached and been red carded or penalized in more sports than anybody I know. I think he's been football, volleyball, softball, basketball, and soccer. You'd have to verify, but I think he's been disciplined by officials in 5 sports at least. So that's pretty impressive.
That is impressive.
And was my assistant coach, but far more than that for a number of years. He helped to create the whole culture of expectation. I could, without fear, turn over my entire JV program, knowing he was training them for varsity play, not just trying to have it. He always took it as seriously as if it were varsity. He and my other coaches really provided tremendous input in any game strategy or training, but he never overstepped his bounds or anything. And the night we lost in the playoffs with this great team is because I had to bench 2 or 3 great players for discipline. They just couldn't control themselves outside of school and inside of school and be on the team. And so I've got one of the state leading goal scorers and a midfielder sitting in the stands. And, that's the most important thing of coaching, is being able to put quality players on the pitch to do the work. And I thought, if I can't figure out how to get them to manage that outside life so they can be on this pitch, I need to step aside. And I think Wes and I were actually having lunch or something at the Woodbridge Diner over there at 36th and right across the street, 36th and Western. And I said, if I give you the team, will you take care of my kids? And he said, yes, I will, Coach. And I knew he would. I just wanted to make sure he knew.
Yeah.
And no turning back. Wes is a much better coach than me because his most important focus is on winning.
Yes.
He didn't have favorites. I would occasionally have favorites. You work hard for me. You're a great kid. You're probably going to get playing time. Mm-hmm. Wes plays the players that accomplish the task.
To earn it.
I promise you, if you're on the field, he believes you're going to help the team win.
Nice.
So I've been very proud of his record. I won 143 games when I coached, and I think he's about to eclipse that, and there's no stopping in sight.
No.
So he may have already gone past that. I'd have to ask him. So
he said he wants another championship, and he probably has like 4 or 5 more years left in him. Which, how do you give up a team and all that you've done? And then we also mentioned, I said you should get a Furley statue out there, and he said no statue. It'd be cool if we can call it the Furley Field statue. And then I want to get back to what you had mentioned about having some players sit out that important playoff game as a coach. And then from what I can see as a person, that moment was probably hard because you want to have those players in there as well, but you probably knew that it was more important for them to learn this lesson now than to learn it later. I mean, because nobody wants to set out a game like that, but you had your reason too. And as tough as it was for them, it was probably harder for you to have to give that one up. Yeah. Maybe you were hoping that they were going to get the W for them to turn around and play the next game. But unfortunately, the cards fall that way sometimes.
They do. And as a coach, you make the decision that you believe is in the best interest of the young men or young women you coach, because it isn't about a W. I also believe that establishes a legacy of that expectation.
Yes.
So I had lots of people upset with me for making that decision, but for me, it enabled the next coach to be able to say, we have standards.
Yes.
We have standards both on and off the field, and this is more than a game. This is about life lessons and about how you behave as a human and how you represent your family and your school. And if you can't get that right, you can't be a part of this special thing that we have. And it was crushing, man. It just broke my heart.
Was that the game there at Santa Fe South?
Yeah.
Where the goalie had gotten chipped from maybe 20 to 30 yards out?
That was one of the goals, yes.
That was the one. And it was like almost I was there. I remember seeing Martin Felix really upset at the game because that was more so also a game that could have been won as well.
Oh, yeah. It was very winnable.
It just didn't need to get where it got.
It was sad, and I wouldn't change it, but I would try to figure out how to get into the personal lives of these players earlier as freshmen or sophomores, so by the time they were seniors, they weren't sort of train wrecking their own lives. But, these are both men that I respect now, and they're grown and doing well, and that was just a hard lesson for all of us, I think.
But I bet they understood.
Maybe. I don't know.
No, they haven't reached out to you and just said
not about that.
Not about that. I'm pretty sure, because I can see why you would, as hard as it is, but it's something that needs to get done. Nani, any questions?
Did you expect Santa Fe South to be like this from back then?
No.
Way different.
Oh, no. I mean, I attribute anything good and any growth to God, who has put his hand over this the whole time. If this were up to me, I would have probably wrecked this 1,000 times over. Just dumb mistakes or errors in strategy. I never anticipated that we would have 3,700 kids, 1,000 on the waiting list, plans to expand with no end in sight. And what that tells me is that our community has simply been waiting for doors to be opened.
There was a need for it.
And all we do is open doors. And I thought when I had like one school with 300 on the waiting list, that if I opened another school, I could take care of the waiting list. But what happened is I had 2 schools, both with 300 on the waiting list. So we just multiplied the list. And to Nani's point, now that we have graduates and they don't have one kid, they have like 4 kids, and they all want their kids to be in the school. And then we have teachers that want their kids. I mean, I told you I had 9. I want them all to be in Santa Fe South. So all of my kids have come here as well. So I never thought about this. This is so much greater in all aspects. But I also believe we can be much, much better than we are right now. And we're pushing harder than we've ever pushed to be an academic institution that's as strong as our soccer institution right now.
I have so many questions. We said 6:30. We have 7 minutes. Let's get some good 7 minutes. Academics and sports. When I went to Dove, primary academics. Nani could probably speak to it. But I also believe that there is a power to sports. How do sports and academics work hand in hand to create a successful human being?
So some of the most impactful people in my life were my coaches growing up. My parents, number one, and then my teachers and coaches were so influential to me. They were men and women who used sport to form me. And most of my coaches were Christians. They followed God. And so their structure was discipline had a reason. It wasn't just to be disciplined. There was to form you as a human and how you were using the body that you had and what kind of sportsmanship you had. So I thought, these were things that were essential to me growing up. It was never extracurricular. It was always co-curricular. So I didn't really like algebra, but I liked algebra enough to get good grades so I could play my sports.
I hear you there.
and I loved music, and I loved drama, and I love athletics. So to me, I never wanted a school that I ran to not have those joyful parts as a part of it. So many charter schools don't have the kind of full-figured athletic program we have. They just don't, because it costs so much money.
Time, volunteers, all that.
And many times it makes it more difficult to focus on the academics. And so charter schools, and magnet schools, they focus and focus and focus. And I said, no, our community will always have this opportunity to be well-rounded, to test their ability to go far, fast, to be strong. And it's always just been a critical, integral part of the school design that we have. If I said next year there's no athletics at Santa Fe South, it would pull the heart out of our school.
Yeah.
It would.
I don't even go to the school, and it'd pull my heart out. To be honest with you.
We had a football program for 14 years, right? We never had a winning season. We won 3 games 1 year. We won 1 playoff game in 14 years. A terribly unsuccessful program. But when I had to cancel it, it still crushed us. Yeah. It still broke our heart that we couldn't continue to have football. We just couldn't. We didn't have enough players or coaches, and it was just not good for I should have never let it be started. It didn't fit our community at that point. But even that program, which did not succeed in the win-loss column, had a lot of other benefits to our school.
Man, it's funny that you say that you shouldn't have let it happen, but like you had mentioned before, you've made mistakes. And the good thing is that, like you had said, the community is letting you learn from them. Because if we just outed you on your first mistake, it wouldn't be fair to us or to you. So I want you to keep making mistakes, because we learn from those mistakes. And those mistakes and the future ones are going to make Santa Fe South where it will be 10 years from now.
And so what I would ask of my community then is something that I need. I need more involved families. They trust us too much. They say, here's my kid, you're going to do a good job, it's a good school. I need our family to be more in our business and point out the mistakes. Hey, this is not the best thing for my kid. Or have you thought about this idea? Or why do you do this thing? Because that genuine desire for the school to succeed is where families are coming from. They're not just up here yelling and fussing. They want this to be a great place for their kid to be. So we need more input, more phone calls, more emails, more people being in our business, because it's the community school.
I agree. Man, we're barely scratching the surface with this interview. I know that you have to leave, but one of the important things that I really wanted to touch on is your stance on where this charter school, all this misconception that's going on with the charter schools, whether it be funding, whether it be how kids get selected. I don't understand where the confusion is, having come from Dove Science Academy and knowing what the possibilities are for charter schools, whether it be a good one, a bad one, but where is this confusion coming from?
Well, I think you can sort of sift through that by determining the source of the opposition and seeing if they have a valid concern.
Mm-hmm.
There really are some valid philosophical differences in school choice, but most people aren't expressing those. They're coming from a school as an employment agency. Don't mess with my school because this is where I get paid to work, and if you take away my kids, I won't get to work here. Well, no other business has that kind of audacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I have a restaurant and you put a restaurant next door to me and people start going to your restaurant, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on my menu so they come back. I'm not going to set your building on fire.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been the general consensus. I want more Dove Science Academies on the South Side. I want KIP. I want competition because competition makes us improve.
Mm-hmm.
Every soccer program on the South Side is better because Santa Fe South is good. Everyone. Yes. Man, when we hook it up on a Friday night against Grant, they're bringing their A game.
Mm.
We play Dove, we're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people may have been at a Quince the night before, but we're going to battle on the field.
Yes,
and everybody's game is elevated. Same thing in school. If we have a great product here and our families are leaving Southeast, which is a great school, then Southeast needs to improve what it does so that our families benefit. It's shifting the power of the public institution from the institution back to the public. Mm-hmm. So we need families to have control. When families have control, it almost always is families with money. They can decide where they live. They can decide where they go to school. And families that don't have a lot of extra money have no choice. So they stay where rent is affordable or houses are affordable, and schools don't have to improve, and they haven't. So this is about empowering our parents for options. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked me once when Dove was coming down here, what do you think about that? They're coming in right across the street from you. And I said, bring it. And they said, what are you talking about? I said, look, our families will have 2 great schools, 3 to decide from right here, Southeast, Dove, Santa Fe South. And if I can't convince them we're the best school and keep them here, then they should go to Dove, right? That means our families win. We have to improve to stay alive. It's better for the whole community that occurs. So as far as I'm concerned, the public school needs to evolve or it needs to die. Mm-hmm. We need to stay viable or we need to be put out of business because if we're not serving our families. So school choice is an essential social justice issue to me. Mm. Families that have never had choice should have choice, and that makes the system improve.
Because that's the problem that you had seen, and this is your answer for it.
Yeah, there was no choice. So Santa Fe South was our stab at, can we give families in the South Side a viable, better option than what they have? And to be honest with you, it was interesting. We opened, again, we had no business opening, but we got our charter to operate the school in June, and we opened in August. Wow. You should, if you know what you're doing, you should work 18 months to start a school. Yeah. We had no idea. We opened it in 7 weeks. But we had 120 kids in a waiting list coming to a church basement with a school that had never existed, with a guy who had never led a school. All the furniture was relocated from my church where I was working because they didn't know I was taking it. We had no furniture. We had no textbooks. Now, why would any family bring their kids to us? Are you kidding me?
They had faith, I guess. They saw something in you you probably didn't see in yourself.
That's what I said. They must know how good we're going to be. But you know what it really was?
They were sick of their options?
It was so bad out there that they said, no matter how bad this Weddle could be, he's probably better than what we're going to do if we go to these schools. What a sad thing. Yeah. This place is so much on fire that we're going to jump out the window because it's going to be better if we do that. Now, over the years, I believe we have affirmed that trust and built a school that's strong. But initial years, they were coming to us just because things were so bad. Yeah. What a tragedy, right?
It reminds me of why my parents ended up signing me up to go to Dove.
Absolutely.
They came by one day when I was in elementary school, 5th grade, handed out some pamphlets, said they had a soccer team, and I was sold. But my parents, more so out of security, did not want me to go to Roosevelt. Yeah. And ended up going to Capitol Hill. Not to say anything bad about those schools, but there was a reputation at that time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where all of our parents just want us to go somewhere safe. I was going to say small, but 4,000 isn't so small anymore. But
we've kept it a little small, but it's no longer what it used to be. We used to be really small, and we've grown it financially to be as tight in the financial model as we can, and still have it. But if we grow, it'll be with other schools, not enlarging the high school, for example, or the middle school.
Gotcha. Well, I think we've almost hit our time, but golly, what a What a good moment to stop the podcast. I'm definitely going to want to have a part 2. So whenever we can schedule that in, Nani, we're going to come back and finish it up. Nani, do you have any questions just to wrap this up?
No.
Do you have anything to say to Brewster? How's your experience been coming from Dove here?
I actually like to hear. I feel like I had more freedom and a better coach, you could say. Like, from running at Dove, I'd only run like 3 miles, and then transferring to Santa Fe, we'd run like 5 miles, and then I guess I learned something new from running. Like, I didn't know. Like, it comes to like running, like workouts, long runs, short runs, like different kinds of conditioning that made me a better runner. Honestly, it helped me made me get more successful in running, because one of my goals was in high school was to place in state, and whenever I moved here my junior year, I was able to place top 15 in state. And
All-stater.
yeah, I never expected that for myself. And then my senior year, I was able to place 12th, and that was just crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
Something that wouldn't have happened if you didn't switch over. No, nothing bad to say about Dove, but expectations here were just a little different. Because
my junior year, if I would have stayed, they would have had no sports. And that would have been like the end of my running career, I guess you could say.
That one hurt me when I heard that there wasn't any sports.
Yeah.
Brewster, do you have anything to say? Any messages to anyone listening? Everyone needs to come out to the gala, support. Along with the gala, I know that there's going to be one for the sports as well, athletics. And then there's probably, I think, another one, a third one after that. But to wrap up your episode, any messages, anything you want to say?
I think what I would say is 2 things. One, we need our community deeply supporting our kids. And that's coming to ball games and coming. I mean, when I was at Capitol Hill, we had almost nobody that would come. It just broke my heart that these kids would work so hard. And I know our parents are working so hard.
Yeah.
Many of them are working all day long and all night. But I want to tell our parents that even if you don't think your kids want you there, they really do. They really do. They need you. So come on. I'd love to have you come. But even if your kid goes to another school, go and support them. Be a part of whether they're music or their parent-teacher conferences. Just show up and let your kids know that you love them and you're there for them. That's really important. Second thing I would say is to you guys and those like you, our community is better because of you all and because of a whole generation that is completely different than what I've seen before, who have ambition, who have desire, they may move away, but they really do often stay here and contribute to making the South Side a place where people want to move in and not out of. And we're at the beginning of this thing. In the next 15, 20 years, this is the place everybody's going to want to live. Yeah. And it's going to be built because of you all. So come back and teach, come back and coach, run your businesses, be a CEO and make a donation, but never forget your community because you guys have tremendous, tremendous talent and ability. I'm very encouraged by both of you. So thank you for the honor of talking to you. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Definitely. Let's get it done. And if there's anything that we can help, whether it be at the Football Factory or with the podcast, I'm one DM, a message, a call away. Okay. If kids want to learn how to create a podcast, I would love to come by and show them the little that I do know with the co-host that I have here who's been doing it for 3 or 4 episodes now. So I really thank you for having us come on. And Nani, another great episode under your belt.
Right.
And to the people that are listening to the episode, thank you for tuning in. It was a short one, but we'll definitely have Brewster back on because I feel like there was a lot left unsaid.
It's an honor. Thank you much. Appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you for the listeners, for the supporters, Brewster, Nani, and this is the end of episode 26. Peace.